Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Saturday evening, December 9, 2023. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at this tweet, first things first, by Handy Hazelton. He's one of the persons on Twitter that you need to follow if you're not already following him. He's actually an associate scientist at CIMAS and at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So he actually makes posts regarding the Atlantic hurricane season, and he recently made a repost of a tweet from the World Climate Service. So the World Climate Service stated NMME models latching on to a rapid end of El Nino in northern hemisphere spring. The 1998 and 2016 events had a negative Nino 3.4 anomaly by June, so it's not unexpected. So they're highlighting this projection. We can see that we're definitely in El Nino threshold right now, where the waters of the Eastern Pacific are warmer than normal. And this was what was responsible for the lack of hurricanes, especially across the Caribbean, lack of rainfall as well. But that's expected to end. We're going to be going into a La Nina. Look at the time period too. Should be in La Nina by, let's say, the late part of the summer into early autumn. And we know La Nina has to do with the cooling of the Eastern Pacific. And then we'll have more sinking air across the Eastern Pacific and resulting in more rising air across the Atlantic and the Caribbean, causing more in the way of thunderstorms to develop easily, not to mention those tropical storms or hurricanes. And what Andy Hazelton reposted and quoted was that I think there's a high likelihood it will be at least cool neutral, if not La Nina, for next hurricane season. If the Atlantic stays as warm as it might, the potential is there for a high end year. And Andy even highlighted what the NMME models are projecting for August 2024 in terms of rainfall. All of these greens, as we can see by the key on the right, represent above normal rainfall. We know the yellows represent below normal rainfall, and the whites represent average rainfall. And look what we see here, stretching from Africa through the main development region, including the Caribbean, where Jamaica is located. A lot of above normal rainfall being predicted, and that's because of the La Nina that's expected. The blues that represent below average sea surface temperatures, so it would result in more sinking air across the Eastern Pacific, less storms, less rainfall. While it's the Atlantic that's going to be taking over with all of those very warm sea surface temperatures, if those sea surface temperatures remain into the heart of the hurricane season. And we can see the NMME model is predicting that. But we know how these things go. This is a very long range forecast, way out there next year, August. We know these things can change. We have to actually stay updated to see exactly what unfolds, and I will definitely be here to keep you all posted. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can still see that high pressure is dominating the entire Atlantic basin, sending all of those easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. We can still see numerous cold fronts still plaguing portions of the northern section of North Atlantic, stretching all the way down to the north of the eastern Caribbean. And we can also see a trough right there across portions of the main development region. Taking a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before the sun went down, we can see the low-level clouds pushing from east to west in that easterly flow of trade winds brought about by that ridge of high pressure. We can see some amount of thunderstorm activity associated with the leftovers of that trough that has been affecting portion of the eastern Caribbean. Some of that right now to the south of Hispaniola. We can also see that we have that trough that we just mentioned across portion of the main development region. Not to mention the cold fronts right here that stretches all the way down to the north of the Eastern Caribbean. We'll be talking more about the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Saturday, December 9. It was stated that we would have received some amount of morning rainfall across sections of northern and eastern Jamaica, and then some of this would spill into sections of central and western Jamaica during the afternoon. And for your information, we know northern parishes, it's not being showed here, but Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland, those are the northern parishes. And eastern parishes, we know, those parishes in the county of Surrey, Portland, St. Andrew, Kingston, St. Thomas. Central parishes, St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine. Western parishes, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. And what ended up happening, a post was made on our Twitter page, not only our Twitter page, but our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok page, highlighting the Cuban Doppler radar images showing some amount of rainfall across sections of some northern parishes. So we know the greens and some slight yellows represent those light to moderate or even heavy rainfall sometimes. We can see that at that time at 2:40 a.m. rain was definitely coming into sections of St. Thomas, sections of St. Mary, and St. Anne as well, just as predicted, northern and eastern Jamaica. Another post was also made on our Twitter page at 11 a.m., highlighting the visible satellite images. So we could definitely see what the Cuban Doppler radar images were showing when the sun came up, the low level patches of clouds pushing from east to west, and then them developing into some amount of cumulonimbus clouds. Then those high cold cloud tops were being blown off towards the east, just as we saw in the upper level wind forecast yesterday. So we definitely had some amount of isolated thunderstorm activity across sections of some northern parishes on Saturday. And then during the afternoon hours now, a post was made at 4:01 p.m. highlighting the visible satellite images again, showing clouds bringing overcast skies and some amount of isolated showers to sections of the very same spots, northern and western Jamaica. Some would say central and western Jamaica because we can clearly see some clouds right there across northern portions of some southern parishes. So northern St. Elizabeth, northern Manchester, northern Clarendon, northern or northwestern St. Catherine. So I guess we could say yes, central parishes, western parishes, just as predicted. And if you'd like to see more posts like this, please ensure that you follow us on our Twitter page, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok page, whichever one you have, as these many posts are not made here on our YouTube page. And we even have confirmation of this rainfall on our Instagram page from Sapphire Willie Marsh 29N stating cool and windy with light rain in Mobay. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun went down, we can see that flow from east to west. Definitely some decent rainfall across sections of St. Anne, Trelawney, and St. James, section of St. Elizabeth as well. Gotten some amount of isolated convection, as we can see even better on the infrared satellite images here with the high cold cloud tops as represented by those blues and greens. So there was definitely some amount of convection burst right there, even some sparkling white dots that indicate some amount of lightning flashes, if not lightning strikes, especially across sections of northwestern St. Elizabeth. And if we take a look at the latest Cuban Doppler radar images, we can see that we have some amount of greens still plaguing the north coast that represent rainfall. So definitely a section of maybe coastal areas of St. James, section of northeast St. Anne, St. Mary. We can see that rainfall exiting the coast of St. Elizabeth as well. And if we take a look at the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology website, accumulated precipitation for the past 24 hours, this does indeed confirm the rainfall that we got across the spots, even although the rainfall totals is not exactly what was, you know, not exactly what took place, but we're looking at the overall picture in terms of the location where the rain was. So definitely a section of northern and eastern parishes, as well as sections of western Jamaica. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can say we have 26 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 26 degrees Celsius in Kingston, and by about 4 a.m. on Sunday, the temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 22 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is showing 18Z on Sunday. When we calculate that, that's about 1 p.m. And when we take a look at the key on the right, we can see the temperature range. So we know the blues, the greens, all of those colors at the bottom represent below normal temperatures. The grays represent average temperatures, and the yellows to the oranges and reds represent above normal temperatures. And we can see Jamaica embedded in some amount of yellows, if not some slight oranges that represent maybe 1 to 2 or even close to 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures for Sunday. And we know the normal temperatures across Jamaica for the month of December, if we take a look at this bar graph at the far right, is about 87 degrees Fahrenheit. When we take a look at the thermometer, 87 degrees Fahrenheit is about the same as 30 degrees Celsius. So, with the forecast for 1 to maybe 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures for Sunday across Jamaica, we should definitely be expecting anywhere from 30 to 33 degrees Celsius at most. Taking a look at the dry air map, we can see that we still have a lot of dry air across the Atlantic basin. We can see by the key at the bottom that the dry air is represented by the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and whites within those reds. And we do see that as of right now, Jamaica is still embedded in some amount of dry air as represented by those yellows and oranges. Taking a look at the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Sunday, we do see that majority of the Caribbean, including Jamaica, should be in the clear, as all of the dust associated with the Sahara Desert, as represented by those browns, is across portions of Africa and the eastern portion of the main development region. Taking a look at the wave forecast, we can see that by the key on the bottom right, the waves and their heights are represented by these colors. So light blue represents 0.5 per meter, the darker shades of blues represent 1 to close to 2 meter wave height. The purples represent 2 meter wave heights or more. And we do see that we're expected to receive 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights on the north and the west coast of the island, while the waters to the south and the east of the island are going to be receiving those purples that represent 2 meter wave heights, maybe even close to 3 meter wave heights. We can see that the GFS model is in consensus with this. And all of this is because the winds are going to be coming in from the east southeast for tomorrow, more so the east, slightly from the east southeast. And we can see a lot of yellows. Look at all of these yellows. We can see by the key on the bottom right that the yellows represent 25 knot winds or maybe gusting to 30. And it's definitely across those spots that have the higher wave height. So the waters to the south of Jamaica, to the east of Jamaica. And we can see the greens that represent 15 to 20 knot winds. We can see that for the most part, across the island, it's going to be coming in from the east, if not the east southeast. And we know what usually happens in the afternoon hours wherever we have the least amount of winds. And the least amount of winds seem to be piling up across sections of some northwestern portion of the island. Maybe Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, sections of Westmoreland might get in on some of the action. We know that the air is going to be piling up. All of the clouds are going to be bundling up. And then maybe we could have some isolated afternoon showers, maybe a thunderstorm or two. We've been getting a lot of thunderstorms for the past week, so we'll see exactly what unfolds. Either way, we still have the upper level winds, as we can see from this forecast for Sunday 18Z 1 p.m. The upper level winds still coming in from the west. So just like what we had today, with all of those high cold cloud tops off to the northwest of the island being blown off to the east, as well as that thunderstorm burst across sections of northwestern St. Elizabeth, we saw those high cold cloud tops being blown off to the east. That's the very strong upper level winds that are blowing them off. So in the low levels of the atmosphere, the high pressure is blowing all of those low level clouds and winds from east to west across the island. In the upper levels of the atmosphere where the planes fly high, that's where we see the winds blowing from west to east, and those are some very fast winds as well, definitely tearing those clouds apart. So we could be receiving some more of that for tomorrow if there's some amount of afternoon thunderstorms that develop during that time. Either way, taking a look at the rainfall forecast from both the year and the GFS models, look at the timestamp. This is 6 a.m. And what do we see? We see some blues that represent rainfall off the north coast of the island. So maybe sections of coastal areas of St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland might get some amount of isolated showers. Maybe spilling into sections of St. Thomas as well. Skipping ahead to about 11 a.m. Where do we see the consensus? Where do we see the blues that represent rainfall? We see it across sections of eastern Jamaica again. Maybe sections of St. Thomas, Portland, who knows? It could spill into sections of Kingston and St. Andrew again, just like on Friday. And then during the afternoon hours, that's where we're going to start to see some amount of contrast, some differences taking place. Look at what the GFS shows. GFS is making more sense with more of the blues that represent rainfall across sections of northwestern Jamaica, considering the east-southeasterly flow. So maybe sections of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, maybe spilling into sections of Westmoreland. GFS not making much agreement with the GFS. The Euro not making much agreement with the GFS at all. Still showing blues across sections of St. Thomas, central Jamaica. But we start to see some northwestern portions getting in on the action. So we'll see exactly what unfolds at 3 p.m. Either way, both accumulated precipitation forecasts are in agreement that there's going to be some amount of rainfall across the island, even although there's some amount of contrast with the location in terms of the amount that's expected. Keep in mind that both of these maps are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Sunday. We do see that the GFS is showing more rainfall for sections of western Jamaica, up to 0.17 of an inch of rainfall. The Euro model showing more of that rainfall concentrated or accumulating across eastern Jamaica, showing up to 0.25 of an inch. Either way, we'll take all the rainfall that we can get. Looking at this map, this is a bar graph showing the average rainfall for Jamaica for 1996 to 2015. We can see that December is usually where we start our dry season. And our dry season peaks in February, where we have the least amount of rain. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get. Any rainfall during the dry season is very much welcome. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we can see a lot of clouds across portions of the intertropical convergence zone. That's the area right there to the east of northeastern South America, to the west of Africa, where all of the air piles up across the northern hemisphere coming in from the northeast, and the air from the southern hemisphere meets right there. Then we have some amount of rising motion taking place, and then we have some thunderstorm activity, but it's nothing to worry about. That's what the ITCZ does. We can also see the low level clouds pushing from east to west. We still have some amount of rainfall across sections of the Windward Islands, some portions of the Leeward Islands as well, but more so the Windward Islands. We can see some thunderstorm activity still taking place across sections of French Guyana, sections of Suriname and Guyana. Colombia, Panama, definitely. Nicaragua getting in on some of that. Costa Rica, sections of Honduras, Belize, sections of Mexico, and even some heading into sections of the Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas. Taking a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean, we can see that as of right now, we don't have much to worry about. We see most of those greens that represent light to moderate rainfall out to sea to the north of Puerto Rico, to the northeast of St. Martin. Not much happening right now, but as it relates to the Barbados radar, we're starting to see that rainfall that we just saw on the visible satellite images. Some isolated showers heading into sections of Martinique, sections of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines getting in on some amount of rainfall right now, if not later on tonight into tomorrow. Section of Grenada getting in on some of that right now, or maybe it is has already finished, but there's more to come as we can see. Section of Tobago, then possibly heading into Trinidad as we can see with that northeasterly blow. So there's definitely some more rainfall in the forecast tonight into tomorrow. Taking a look at the wider view of Doppler radar images, we can see the rainfall passing to the north of the ABC Islands as usual. Some of that rainfall that we just mentioned on the visible satellite images heading into sections of Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula. And as it relates to the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we can see that the Above normal temperatures are still plaguing the Caribbean, as we can see by the key on the right. The above normal temperatures are represented by those yellows, oranges. So we can definitely see anywhere from 1 to maybe up to 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures across majority of the Caribbean for Sunday. Taking a look at the Saharan dust forecast, we're indeed grateful that majority of the Caribbean is not being plagued by the Saharan dust at this time, or for 2 p.m. on Sunday rather. As we can see, the burns that represent the Sahara Desert across sections of Africa and the eastern portion of the main development region. Taking a look at the wave forecast, we can still see that we're definitely going to be having more in the way of choppy seas plaguing majority of the Caribbean. We can see more in the way of those darker shades of blues, if not purples, even some burgundies in there that represent 2 meter wave heights or more, maybe even getting up to 3 or maybe even slightly 4 meter wave heights, especially the waters to the far south of Jamaica. And we can see that both the Euro and the GFS are in consensus with this. And that's because the winds are going to be coming in from the east, gusting anywhere from 20 knots in the green, 25 knots in the yellows, maybe even gusting close to 30 knots in some of those slight burgundy colors. Definitely right there where we have that cold front across sections of the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. As it relates to the rainfall forecast, we can see that there's some amount of consensus in terms of the amount of rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Sunday. We're not saying that it's going to be raining all the way up until then, but within that time period, these are the spots that are going to be getting in on that rainfall. So we can see rainfall stretching across sections of the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, sections of the Dominican Republic, not so much Haiti, Puerto Rico, especially eastern Puerto Rico, sections of the US and British Virgin Islands, maybe St. Martin, St. Kitts, not so much across Antigua and Barbuda, but definitely sections of Guadeloupe, Dominica, maybe sections of Martinique, skipping southward, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, sections of the ABC Islands. We can see somewhat of contrast right there in terms of the rainfall that's expected across Trinidad and Tobago. The GFS showing more rainfall for there. The Euro showing less, only those slight greens that represent some isolated showers. But look to the south of there. Definitely a section of especially coastal areas of Guyana, Suriname, and French Guyana, southern Venezuela, section of Colombia, as we can see by those reds. We're taking a look at the key on the right, so it all makes sense. All of those colors up to an inch in the red. So maybe some isolated flash flooding could take place. Section of Panama, Costa Rica, definitely eastern Nicaragua gonna be getting in on some amount of rainfall. Honduras, Guatemala, Belize as well. Section of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. And maybe some of that isolated shower activity across sections of the Cayman Islands. And we know that when both maps from the Euro and the GFS models are showing something similar like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.